Disruption Networks.
What's cracking, Internet? How are you? Hope you're having a good day. We are live. It's EC Radio time. You can follow along on all Disruption Network social media platforms. We're live on Twitch. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter. And we're live on your cell phone right now, people. And if you can't watch us live, you can watch us or listen to us on a podcast that you can find at disruptionnetwork.net. Much love to my sponsors. If not for the sponsors, this podcast is not possible. Thank you to EJA Moving Services, the professional movers. When you're ready to move and relocate, hit up Eddie and his fine staff at ejamoving.com. 315-335-0516, the home of the free boxes. Not only do they give you free boxes, but they pack them up for you. They bring them wherever you need to go, and then they unpack them for you. They're awesome. Awesome moving service, very reputable. Tell them Uncle Z sent you. ejamoving.com. You can find them online. Shout out to my attorney, Dave Longaretta, who's been keeping me out of trouble since the early 90s. Give him a call today at 315-735-6162. You can also support my sponsors over at Utica Coffee. I'm drinking fantastic coffee today. I'm drinking Jamaican Me Crazy, and I think it's Jamaican Me Motor Mouth is what's happening here. Thank you to Frank and Heather over at Utica Coffee. WakeTheHellUp.com. Thank you to Saranac Brewery, and also shout out to Joey's at 307. Matt Grabsky, you're a gem, and he's an amazing chef, so you should go check him out, what he's doing over there. 307 Mohawk Street. Awesome, awesome place. So everybody out there is checking. Mom's checking in already, Stace. Mom's checking in already. So here it is. Frank Malfitano is in the house with me. We've been wanting to do this for years. For years. How long has it been? It's been a couple years.
It's been a long time we've been talking about it, and we're finally here. So I'm really grateful. But listen, you got to pick up the pace a little bit. I'm getting tired.
You're tired, right?
I'm exhausted already.
We just had a fantastic meal at Danielle's.
Unbelievable.
And I'm worried about him nodding out.
No, that's not going to happen.
Stacey Waterman co-hosting today. She picked you up. I heard she kidnapped you today.
She did.
She did.
We had a great ride. We had a great catch-up conversation. It's been a while. I've known Stace for a very long time, since she started out in the music business, and it's always been great. She's the best.
What's the first gig you two worked together?
It had to be something at the Landmark.
Sammy's, probably Sammy Awards, maybe.
You know, when Frank was executive director at the Landmark for many years, one of the things that the best things was that he always kept the building accessible and available and active in community projects, functions. So there was always something going on, even if there wasn't this big show coming through. It didn't matter what day of the week it was, what was happening. He always had the place, you know, in the news, and had some sort of function going on. There was, you know, early on the Sammys as the founder, and then we did this. One of the coolest things that ever was the big broadcast. He actually did a telethon, a literal, like, call it in. It was live on TV.
Oh yeah,
telethon to raise money for the theater. And it was all local entertainment. It was really wicked cool.
You're like Jerry Lewis.
It was awesome. Yeah, he is. He's the Jerry Lewis of Syracuse. And then when our dear friend Larry Arlotta, Syracuse, you know, music legend, God rest his soul, passed away. Frank did with a lot of his friends put together a memorial. The concept wasn't for it to be a benefit. Obviously, those things turn into those types of, you know, events. Everybody wants to help, but it was a musical tribute to, you know, the memory of Larry and his contribution, and that was one of the best days ever. It was so many people participated, and so many people in the community gave, you know, donated items for like silent auction and stuff. I mean, Buki over at the Music Center did like a whole drum kit, and, you know, couple other like really high end like things, and you know, it was a very fitting tribute to a really great guy. But, you know, a lot of those things were, you know, the vision of Frank and spearheaded by him. And we all early on, you know, I was a secretary at DMR for David Rezick, and, you know, I got to be involved in all of those things and learn, you know, at the feet of these guys, and side by side a lot, as Frank would say, with him, you know, working with him on his various projects. So.
It amazes me, all your mentors. Like, think about your mentors who you
I'm
have.
So lucky, you know?
Absolute legends.
You know that, and you also you have people that we all do. where you learn what to do and what not to do. So if you don't learn those things, then you're really, you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
And anybody, even myself as a mentor to some people, when you make mistakes, the people that you're mentoring should learn from them as well. So we've been able to do that for many, many years. And we talked about that on the way up a little bit. And one of the things that I think I learned a lot from Chuck as well as Frank was the importance of the artist and what we do. And so many people now, with big corporations and, corporate promoters and the large companies, a lot of times they forget what we're there for, and I've always been very aware of it. Without these artists, we don't have jobs,
right.
So there's got to be that level of respect. And you saw that too, like when we were doing stuff at the fair, we just try to make everything as comfortable and, familiar as possible for everybody visiting, because they are visiting your city and you're their first impression.
Yeah.
So that was always something. And Frank's got the reputation of being kind of a stern, I mean, he's Italian.
Hey.
He told me
Take
once.
it easy.
He's the first one who told me. He goes, "When I love, I love. When I hate, I hate." And if you think of that in literal sense, it's very true. And if once you understand that, it's easier to deal. Like you always say, I'm an honorary Italian. I think it's Frank that made me that way.
Yeah, for real.
I always thought of myself as a band leader more than anything else. I was a student musician in high school all the way up to college, and did some musical theater stuff. And I always loved the music. And for me, everything began with the music and the people who created it. So Stacy's right in that regard. At least we're in alignment on that one. I mean, I think that it all begins with the music and the artists that create it. So my job is to make sure it's the best show it can possibly be, and make sure that the conditions for the artist are the best they can possibly be. Because I think that if everything is taken care of and an artist doesn't have to worry about anything but his or her performance on that given evening, they're going to give us the best possible performance they can. And then the audience will be happy, the sponsors will be happy, and everybody will be happy. And but I've done that my whole career. I mean, I've followed the music everywhere. Stacy and I go back, that was 1990, so that's over 30 years ago. And I was able to spot good talent. I knew that she played good tambourine. I wanted her in the band. I wanted her in the band immediately. She had rhythm. She was a great dancer. I thought, oh, man, she's got it, And Mary Jo Spillane was another person and they were both inducted into the Sammys Hall of Fame, which I'm very proud of. I was the founder of the Sammys, but really I was like the ringleader of the... I found as soon as I got to the Landmark Theater, I had been working in New York City in the 80s.
We told you Z has a Sammy now.
Z has a Sammy for this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
That's really great. It's the greatest thing in the world.
It really is.
It really means so much to people, and I'm so thrilled about that. When we created it, I had no idea it was going to have that lasting power, that kind of meaning, and a lot of the credit for that goes to Liz Nowak and her team and the people that have carried it on over the course of the last 20 years. But I produced the first 3 editions when we were at the Landmark Theater, and I had a great cast of characters. It was Dave Rezek, Stacy, Mary Jo Spillane was involved a little bit, Liz Nowak, Russ Tarby, and Brian Burke, the great music writer, and they were the cynics. That was the chorus. Oh, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Oh, Mike Greenstein at the
Greenstein
time,
was involved. Yes, Mr. Bad Vibes, and well, yeah, it was a strange table reading, and. But it was really important that all the music journalists in town and all the people that were advocates for the music scene really came together to make that happen. It took us about 3 years in development before we produced the first edition. Mm-hmm. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. I wanted to make sure we came out of the blocks and out of the chute right, and we did. And it's still going, and I think it's a great thing. I mean, I go to funerals, I go to wakes, I see the Sammys in people's coffins. I don't know if that's the right image here. You can't unsee that, but I mean, you see somebody doing a Zoom, a podcast or a Zoom interview or whatever, and you see their Sammy statuettes behind them and on their mantles, and they're very proud of it. And it really means something. It's kind of acknowledgement of a life well spent in music, and that was the intent. I always thought there was a disproportionate amount of attention that was being given to all the wrong people in town. And I thought that musicians, for all of their contributions, really weren't being honored properly. So when we started to put this together, I said to people, what do you want? I said, we want a big stage. We want advertising. We want a packed house. We want everybody to come dressed and in limousines. And I said, well, I don't know about the limousine, but I know a guy. And so we did it, and that's exactly what it wound up being. It was packed to capacity, and 3,000 people would come dressed to the nines and pour out of limousines. And I mean, it was really a show. It was our Grammys. It was our Oscar night. It was a very special occasion.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's still going to this day. It's got to make you feel great. Did you handpick the committee yourself in the first couple installments?
I did, yeah. And, I could kick myself for a couple of those selections, but no, for the most, no. It was really a great bunch. I mean, we had some very spirited conversations, and look what evolved from it. Yeah. So, when it started out, I think we had about 50 categories.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Wow.
It's much different now, and back when Frank started this and everybody was like, I was just, I volunteered to do whatever I can do to help out the, literally there would be, Fresina was involved when they would do the night where we would count ballots. First we had to validate them all because everything was done by hand.
Well, they were written ballots.
They were written.
So were they mailed in? Is that how they were done?
Or
dropped off.
In a box.
Dropped in boxes, like at
record stores and things,
stuff.
music stores.
So we had to go through and by the diversity of everybody that was involved, like there might be 25, 30 people sitting around the big tables in Landmark. Somebody knew one of them. You know what I mean? Like we were just validating that they were indeed, you were supposed to be part of the music community in some way to have a vote. So we validated all the votes. Like somebody knew them if their name was on there, on that table. And then we have to go through and actually the group would break down once everything was validated, and then there was a group that did the counting, but literally everything was done by hand, so it's quite the process.
It was over 30 years ago. I mean, it was the only way to do things at the time. Computers were barely coming onto the scene in 1990 for the most part, and so it was pretty primitive by today's standards, but it worked. It really worked, and the community was really invested in it, and it was great. And we were able to raise sponsorships, and we were able to do it. And we really had the right team and the right band together, Were
you doing the Hall of Fame right off the top, too, right in the beginning? Or did that come in later on in the years?
We did the Hall of Fame right off the bat.
Right off the bat? Yeah.
Our first Hall of Fame class, let's see if I can remember, the great Jimmy Cavallo.
Was that the first?
That was 93, yeah. Benny Mardones.
Mm-hmm.
Geez, I can't remember now. Isn't that awful?
It's 30 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time. Sal Nistico, I think, was the great jazz saxophonist who played with Count Basie and Woody Herman. Amazing player. We could go back and look it up. It's all online. You just go to SyracuseAreaMusicAwards.com.
Oh, it was quite the event then, like people, like you said, show up with the red carpet and limo. The whole crew from the Dinosaur used to come in a limo and pile out of there like they stole the fucking thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, what about that? Yeah, then there was the night the hearse. We had Baron Damone. Baron Damone recorded the top selling single of all time in Syracuse.
Was a television personality, right?
Television personality who did a monster show. He played like a Dracula character.
Monster movie matinee.
No, that was different.
That was different?
That was a different show. He did the Baron Damone show.
Oh, it was his own show.
Yeah, that was his own show. The other guy was Alan Millar, and he had Will Late playing Dr. Enoch Whitty.
Like in the 60s, like early 70s.
Early television, but great. And he had a kids show, and he had a Peanuts gallery, and he called them their bloody buddies. And he had this really thick Transylvanian accent, but he was great. And so he did a recording with a great local. Sam and the Twisters, I think, were one of the first Hall of Famers, right? First live band I saw, I think was about 12, 13 years old at the Montecito Lounge on North Salina Street in Syracuse. Anyway, he recorded a song with Sam and the Twisters and the Big Tree Sisters called Transylvania Twist. And the flip side was Fuva Woova John. And it became the best-selling single of all time. So when he came to do the show, and we came to honor him with a Hall of Fame award, Sammy's, he popped out of a casket. And so we borrowed Dave Rezick, who Stacy worked with at DMR. Dave had borrowed the casket from a local funeral home, and the casket wound up disappearing. And it was he thought it was in the hearse What was Scott Sterling's band? Dracula Jones. They had a hearse that they rode around town in and carried their band gear around town. He thought they stole the hearse. So 4 o'clock in the morning, I get a call from Resnick. He says, "Where's the casket? Where's Dracula Jones?" I said, "Dave," I says, "the funeral director came and got the casket hours ago. It's all set." Yeah, so we had a lot of fun with that. We had a lot of great times, a lot of great performances, and a lot of great memories. And it's still going on, which is great, and I'm thrilled about that. Liz Nowak, I love you.
In fact, Liz is going to be on the show on Monday. She's going to be joining us on Monday. So
she's the greatest. I love her. Yeah, that's Mama Music right there. Her and Stace, you know.
For sure.
And yeah, it's really an honor, and I'm just happy to see, you know, folks of your age and your generation being honored. And it still matters today to artists that are out there trying to creatively make the world a better place to be. So it's doing everything it was designed to do. And yeah, I guess in retrospect, we picked the right band.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. Frank, take me to that one moment that inspired you to get into the music industry.
Oh, that's really a good question. I was 13 years old. I was playing second or third clarinet in the Eastwood High School band, and I got to be pretty good as a student musician, and I wound up being an all-county band, an all-county orchestra, an all-city band, an all-state sectional. And one night with all-county band, we were playing at Jamesville DeWitt, and there was a wonderful music teacher by the name of Jim Mosier, who was the director of the all-county orchestra and ensemble. And he had a guest soloist in, a brilliant classical trumpet player by the name of Rafael Mendez. I'll never forget it. And he came in, and we did these bolero-type tunes and things that had Latin roots and whatever. And I knew that night, I said, I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know when, I don't know what, but I'm going to be in the music business for the rest of my life. It literally changed my life. So being a student musician was really, really opened the door for me. We did not have jazz charts back then. We had Broadway show tunes. So I grew up playing Sound of Music and My Fair Lady and Brigadoon and things like that. But, you know, that just opened up my world to classical music and Broadway music. Famous artists, the great Rose and Murray Bernthal, and Chris Rogers is working at Famous Artists now, right?
Yeah,
Stace?
the company's continued under another, owner, a bigger company.
Right.
But they started it local right there in Syracuse.
Right, and it's like Broadway Theater League. It's the same kind of thing. They bring in touring professional Broadway theater companies, music companies, and they used to have, this was brilliant, I thought. They had a series on Saturday mornings at Lincoln Auditorium in Central High School in downtown Syracuse. And you could buy, and my parents did, a 6-part series ticket, and you would go and see people performing from all of their shows. So one day you might go see a classical musician, like an Itzhak Perlman or something like that. Another day you might go see a Broadway show. It was a mixed bag kind of series, but it was terrific. And then we had some DJs in town.
Is it true that that Rose Bernthal literally stopped a wrecking ball from taking down the theater?
Rose was part of the group that saved the Landmark Theater from a wrecking ball. That's true. She was the first executive director of the Landmark Theater. I followed her in many years later. But when I did my first major concert at the Landmark Theater, she was my mentor. Mm-hmm. And we later inducted her and Murray into the Sammys Hall of Fame. And she thought, oh, the Sammys Hall of Fame. I said, no, Rose, you got to come. You really got to. Because she didn't think it was a big deal, right? So she's behind the curtain. We open the curtain. She sees 3,000 people. She started to cry.
Wow.
It was it's a very special moment for me and for them, and I was happy to see a whole generation of people saluting them for all the great work they've done. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's super important to honor those that came before you, especially your mentors. Who are some of your mentors besides her?
Beside Rose? Well, there was a great DJ, radio DJ. Back in the day, there were 2 radio stations in our market. There was WNDR and WOLF. They were both AM stations, right?
Yeah, AM.
They were both AM stations, and they both had a 50 share. A 50 share in radio is unheard of.
Unheard of.
What's a share today?
Four. Four is like number one.
Number one in the market,
yeah,
right? Amazing. So Dandy Dan Leonard put on a lot of shows, and he had a record label, Dandy Dan Records, and he promoted local groups like the Monterey's and Sam and the Twisters and the Madisons. And they put on live shows, and he did a thing there was a nightclub called Three Rivers Inn in Phoenix, New York, and they'd bring in it was a mob joint, and they brought in all the big name touring acts at the time. So you could go and you'd see Nat King Cole and Sammy Davis Jr. and they had a local band playing in the lounge. Jimmy Cavallo was playing in the lounge, and I mean it was big time showbiz. So Dan did a thing where you could go to the heart of downtown Syracuse, take a bus on a Sunday afternoon. The guys had to wear a sport coat and tie, and the ladies had to dress appropriately. And for $1, you got a bus ride to Teen Canteen, and you got a Sloppy Joe and a Pepsi on the way in, and you sat there, and out would come Johnny Mathis.
Out to the Three Rivers?
Three Rivers Inn. A Sunday afternoon, Teen Canteen. You'd see Chubby Checker, Johnny Mathis. Man, it was that was a big time introduction to show business. So Dan was, for me, and someone who took me under his wing. I went to all of his shows, and we got to know each other, and he was one of our Hall of Fame honorees also. So yeah, Dan was instrumental in my career. My music teacher, my high school music teacher, John Wilkie, and my Tony DeAngelis, my private music
Jack
teacher.
Bell might have been one of the first.
Oh, Jack Bell
too.
Jack Bell was just the ultimate icon. Jack was
He
big.
might have been one of your first inductees, I think.
Jack was right there.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah, if not, he should have been. So
I didn't know Jack. I came along after.
oh
Jack,
my
yeah.
God, Jack was the promoter.
Mm-hmm.
Jack was the Bill Graham of Central New York. I mean, Jack was big time. And his disciples were people like Dave Resnick and Chuck Cheo, and I mean, they all grew up in Jack Bell's stable. I mean, one of the great promoters, and one of the great guys in the industry, and we lost him much too soon.
Did you work for him?
I did not work for him. No, I just admired him from a distance.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he liked me. I mean, they all tolerated me. They knew that. They knew that I loved the music. I mean, that was it. They knew that I loved the music. Stace and I were having that conversation.
For sure.
You were saying something about when I greet the artists.
Yeah, that's something I always tell people because there is a little bit of a, a lot of people don't know Frank. They know of Frank, but they don't know Frank. He's an intense guy, but I've known him for so long. It's like almost.
What do you mean by that?
It's like almost every Italian male I know has that. They're loud. They're the loudest. They're the most animated. There's always it can be intimidating to people. But I think he's, there's also the genuine, regard and respect that he has for these artists. And I would always tell people when he gets, they see him and they're like, oh, look, nobody schmoozes better than Frank. Artist comes, gets out of the car at Jazz Fest. He's right there with a hug and a handshake and how you doing? And in a lot of situations, that's what people do because that's what you're supposed to do, or it's you're kissing ass or whatever, but that's not what it is. Like, he really means that he's really, really, I mean, I've seen him get on the ground and, you know what I mean? He's not kidding. He's like, he really means it. He knows. And it's one thing I was telling him, it's one thing like when Aretha Franklin would show up and he goes and greets her and calls her queen and bows and, because he means it. He really means it. But then right behind her is a van full of musicians. And as they're getting out, he knows every single one of their names. He'd walk up, how you doing, this, that. They're talking about some bullshit that happened, 10 gigs ago when he was there. Or some, it's amazing. And I always, when I worked for Jazz Fest, just, the production coordination and hospitality stuff for Frank, everybody really had a great time when they showed up, and he always greeted everybody that way. And I was constantly amazed at how he knew every single player's name. He knows every jazz musician there is. And then I said the best times I had were after we're done. And, same thing with us when we're working. The best times when everybody goes home and it's just us sitting around you know. But with him and his buddies, he had Oscar was from New Orleans, and you had another guy that would come all the time.
Dr. Jazz from Detroit.
Yeah. So those dudes are like serious jazz fans, and like, you know, were they musicians or just? Dr.
No, but they've been in the music industry.
He was in.
He's in radio
DJ,
promotions.
yeah, radio.
Right? And
but they know everybody.
They know everybody.
And every single musician, they know what they do. Talk about a gig that happened, some obscure, you know, record, whatever. They this jazz speak that they had. It was almost like they're speaking this different language. So I used to like to sit and listen to them talk. You know, it was really like they were speaking a different language, but they all understood it, and so did all the musicians that would come in. And I was privy to some of the funniest fucking conversations I've ever heard in my life. You know, like
there's a patois. There's a lot of storytelling, but there is a
because you laugh, Frank, when you.
Oh yeah.
One of my the most fun ever is to get Frank. I mean, like he's like laughs with everything. You know, like and he gets laughing, he can't stop. So it's like it's really funny. And
it's much better that way.
And and those guys, I mean, they would. You would bust their balls so badly. You could tell they were lifelong friends, you know, just the level of ball busting that went on, you know, it was epic.
We had a shorthand, you know, that we did speak kind of that we were on a vibe. It was some sort of wavelength, and I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm sure it was from Saturn or something, but we had another buddy, Shay Steinman. Remember Shay with the little dog from New York City? He was a lifer from the village, you know, and he was another music junkie. I mean, with just the three or four of us. I mean, it was quite a little troop. We had a lot of fun. Jazz Fest, I think, turned into. So I never expected that. I you know, when I started Jazz Fest, it was out of frustration. I thought I was going to festivals in Toronto and Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Newport and I said to myself, yeah, I saw the best, and I said, we can do this in Syracuse. All the guys, they got a stage, they get some bands. I had no idea what I was talking about. None. I had no idea.
What was the first year for Jazz Fest?
First year was indoors around 1981.
Wow.
Where?
It was at a place called Oliver's, which used to be on the corner of Bridge Street and Erie Boulevard. And it used to be Uncle Sam's before that.
Oh, that big joint there, the country club.
Suburban Park, the country club, right. So it was Oliver's before it became Suburban Park. We did a bunch of indoor mini jazz festivals that were one day. And, I mean, 1,500 people would show up on a Sunday afternoon, and all the other bars were doing nothing, and so they'd call the fire department and get us shut down. But, I mean, it was we were building an audience without knowing it. And I said, you know, I always wanted to go outside. So after a year or two of that, we went outside, and our first outdoor festival was at Song Mountain Ski Resort.
Song Mountain, huh?
1983.
Then Long Branch?
We took a year off, took a year's hiatus. I went to some show in the middle of nowhere that Mark Gummer and who was his partner?
Liz?
Dave Allen.
Oh, at Gummer and Allen. Yeah.
Gummer and Allen. And no, they had bought some forest preserve and built this. No, it's true. It was like national parkland or something.
Gummerland?
Next to it, Gummerland.
Gummerland.
And I went and they had this big stockade stage. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And I said,
Were you watching a joust or a fucking
I don't know what it was. It looked like a Renaissance festival, but I said, listen, man, we want to do a festival. And I did a festival. He said, oh, yeah, I heard about that, you know. And I said, I want to move it to Long Branch because nobody came to Song Mountain. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had a great lineup. Mose Allison, the Heath Brothers, you know. I mean, it was a phenomenal.
My favorite was, it's still unbelievable that it happened, was being downtown for
Ray Charles.
And was Diana Krall the same year?
It was Ray Charles, Diana Krall. This was 2000.
Okay.
Our last year downtown in Clinton Square because we outgrew it.
It was so huge.
Ray Charles, Diana Krall, David Sanborn, Pete Fountain, and Dave Brubeck.
Wow.
Right.
And I could actually do that. I could afford them all at that time, right?
I was just going to say.
Yeah, no, it was like, how many people showed up, Stace? It was off the charts.
Oh, man, you couldn't, like,
you couldn't move.
Salina Street was not part of the closing for it was always open. You know, the cars could, not that night. Like when Ray Charles, you couldn't, there was people from one side of Clinton Square across into Hanover Square.
Wow.
You couldn't move. It was amazing.
In every direction.
Yeah.
I mean, and Ray was great, and he had the band and the Raylettes, and
I'm so fortunate. I got to see Ray Charles.
Ray Charles.
Like, a few, like there, but then I saw him also at the state fair. Well, then they used to do 2 shows a day at Chevy, right? The act would do 2
2
shows.
and 4.
So then, and Stanley would always be the band,
Yes.
the local band,
The house band.
the house band. So I got to see Ray Charles twice at the fair, and then I saw the set at Jess's. I feel so blessed to have seen him because I have missed so many, of the greats that we didn't get to see. Either they were gone before we were out seeing music, or we just weren't cool enough to know what was up. you
True.
know?
Here's a little story that connects us that you probably don't know. The first time I saw Ray Charles, I went with Dave Rezick, and we were sitting in the front row.
Where'd you guys see him at a regular show?
The Landmark Theater.
Landmark.
Wow.
In the front row. I got to present Ray 6 times, and the last time I presented him was in Detroit as part of the American Master Series at Music Hall. I worked in Detroit for 7 years, and it was just great. I mean, it was really, and he passed shortly thereafter, so we were one of the last performances that he gave on this earth. And it was a tremendous honor to know him, and he was a wonderful guy, very funny, and just brilliant. I mean, it's Ray Charles, man, you know?
Can you give me the best memory you have of him?
When he said, "Did you bring my dom?" And he drank it right out of the bottle, man. No, he was having fun with it. He had a new keyboard device. It was a pitch bend, and it could actually bend the notes. And he says, "Come here." He said, okay, the best story is I'm sitting in the trailer and I'm in awe, and we're backstage. And Dr. Jazz was our cameraman at the time. He was our photographer, our chief photographer, great photographer, along with everything else. And we couldn't find him. And Ray wants to get in the limousine. He wants to get going. And I says, I've been waiting for this moment for 30 fucking years, and there's no camera. And Ray cracked up, and he looked at me. He goes, "It's all right. I'm not going anywhere."
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was great. He was really great to me, and I always enjoyed seeing him. And he was as cool as it came.
Yeah. Since we're talking about this moment, give me a good pinch me moment. Like, pinch me. I can't believe my career has brought me here. And I'm sure you have multiple, so you can just rattle off as many as you want.
It was always Aretha.
Aretha?
It was always Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had marched with Dr. King and in 1963, and Aretha was part of that. Aretha, of course, was very close to the King family, and she had gone out and done a bunch of fundraising benefits for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Dr. King. And I was somewhere, and there was Mahalia Jackson, and there was Dr. King, and there was this young lady named Aretha Franklin, and that's the first time we met. But we didn't meet professionally for many years later until I became the artistic director at Detroit Music Hall Center for the Performing Arts. And as soon as I got to town, I booked her immediately, and she did 2 shows a year for us. She did Valentine's Day, which was always sold out, of course, and then she did a Christmas show. Mm. And so when I was reintroduced to her backstage, we were talking about the civil rights movement and her father, and she said, my dad used to preach in this theater when his church was undergoing renovations and whatever, and we got to be great friends. And so I worked with her 16 times, presented her here at the Stanley Theater when I was a consultant to the Stanley back in 2007 and 2008. And I certainly worked with her in Detroit many times and had her at Jazz Fest. She headlined Jazz Fest in Syracuse twice. So it was always a great honor. But that was the ultimate for me, meeting Miss Franklin and working with Miss Franklin. And she's very formal, very polite, very reserved, always called me Mr. Malfitano. And I always called her Miss Franklin, never called her Aretha. But we used to be home. Kathy and I would be home. My wife's was in radio for 38 years at iHeart and Cheap Channel before it and whatever it is, and iFart. And she was at Clear Channel and she was at iHeart. She was a morning drive radio personality and program director, and she was very successful for
this station before it was big corporate.
Before it was corporate, right? 94 Rock it was.
Yeah,
she started it
with Tommy Nast,
right?
And all those
oh yeah, that was the deal, right? She started out at Wolf, and she wound up at 95X, and then she wound up at 94 Rock, and then it became Y94, and adult contemporary and kind of, the Celine Dion, Elton John channel. And why did I mention that? What the hell were we talking about?
Aretha.
Oh, we
And
were
your wife.
talking
Your
about
wife.
my wife and Aretha.
You said we'd be at home.
Oh, we'd be at home and
Very
we'd be
good,
watching
Stacey.
television.
That's why she came.
And you know what? Oh no! Listen, I can't do anything without her, and who would want to? Look at her. She's just nothing but joy and brilliance, and she's all about the music. She's all about the music, and
You obviously never seen her in the morning.
No, I can't honestly say I have, but you know what? I love Stacey,
Me
and
too.
I always will. And thank God for Stacey. I mean, there wouldn't be a music scene if it wasn't for Stacey.
100%.
And okay, can you pay me now?
Yeah.
It's in the mail.
You got to finish your story first.
Well, we're
about being home.
watching television, and the phone rings, and there's her name on the television screen. And I said, "Quick, Kath, get your cell phone, take a picture. Take it. Nobody will believe Aretha called, right?" And I remember when I asked her to play Jazz Fest in Syracuse. She had just played Music Hall, and we were coming up on our 25th anniversary in 2007. And I said, "Miss Franklin, I would be so honored if you would play." And I handed Willie Wilkerson, who was her bodyguard, boyfriend, whatever, her security team of one. I mean, this guy was the size of the Empire State Building, and a great guy. And I handed him my card, and I said, well, I wrote a little note on it. And I'm in Syracuse, and I'm under the table fixing my, what do you call those computer thing, the router. The router had come, and I was plugging in the router or something. The phone rings, and I pick it up, and she said, "Mr. Malfitano, this is Aretha Franklin." And I said, "Yeah, who is this really?" And I got, she said, "No, this is Aretha Franklin." And I bopped up and hit my head on the bottom of the table because I couldn't believe I was talking to Aretha Franklin. And I always had that reaction. I was always in awe of her. I think the greatest singer of all time. Certainly Rolling Stone rated her the #1 singer of all time. First woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Just the queen.
You know, one of Z's pinch me moments was meeting Smokey Robinson.
Oh, at Jazz Fest?
No, at the fair, right?
At the fair?
Yeah.
But that was right after Aretha had passed.
Yeah, I would dropped him off at the airport. He
They were
was
going
heading
to
to
the
Aretha's
services.
funeral.
Yes.
And I let him out of the car, and he gave me the biggest hug at like 5 in the morning at Syracuse Airport and goes, "My brother, thank you for everything you did for me this weekend. I really, truly appreciate you. God bless you." And then he gave me a hug, and then he walked away. And I'm like,
I just met Smokey Robinson. Yeah.
Smokey.
He was at Jazz Fest
He's the
2005.
coolest, man.
Yeah, the coolest.
He was great.
And then the next day we had the Temptations, and I had a great weekend with those dudes. Oh my God.
So when Smokey came to the fair, he had this brother named Fred with him, who is Aretha's man, right? Like took care of her,
Yep.
sound. And Fred came, and I bring this up because it was one of the funniest stories ever. So I had Aaron with me, our friend Aaron. We call him Boonville. He was with me at Jazz
You
Fest.
call him Boonville?
Yeah.
That's his nickname?
Because he's from there.
He's literally the whole town.
I love it.
So, I think Fred might have come in. He came up to the site, even though they weren't playing till the next week, check it out. And we weren't expecting him, but the girls brought him over. And then, he looked around for only one to head back. And my friend Aaron at the time, he'd come up to see what was happening. And I'm like, do me a favor and take our man Fred here back to the hotel, So he takes Fred, right? Now Aaron, he's a bit of a hustler and he ain't afraid of a good time, And so I was a little concerned about sending him off in my nice truck with Fred, but
This is Boonville we're talking about.
off they go, right? They come down the backside of OCC, down the hill and into the hood, and they're going to go to the dinosaur because he called Retha and she wanted some ribs and, they wanted some food. So they go down. He stops at like the Wilson Farms in a pretty shady part of town down there. And, there's these young kids and it's known for like they cause trouble out there and shit, So he's like, oh man, I don't know. He's like, dude, he goes, just stop. I got to go in and playing numbers, and he wanted to come out, get some beer or something. And like he walks up, Aaron's like walks up to the kids, and Aaron's like, "Oh man, I hope I don't have to get out, and this is gonna be a scene. They're gonna mess with this old man." And Fred gets out, and he's got like this George Jefferson walk, man, and he parted those motherfuckers like the Red Sea. Them kids stepped out the way, opened the door for the guy. He goes in, gets what comes back out, gives him the hairy eyeball, gets in the car. Like nobody was gonna mess with this dude. And then, of course, and then Aaron gets like, yeah, that's right.
I'm with Fred.
I'm with Fred.
It's Fred's town. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, what's true, Frank Fowler, who used to be the chief of police, was telling me that, and I don't hear about these stories until much later.
Oh, it's great.
After Miss Franklin leaves the festival, she goes to McDonald's, and she's got a police escort to McDonald's, and the limo pulls into McDonald's through the drive-thru. Yeah, I mean, she was a homegirl, man. She was great. But I've met so many people in the business, whether at actors and movie stars, and it's always exciting, although I'm not usually starstruck because I've been around the business for most of my life.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's always a thrill. It's always a thrill to meet these giants, especially I've been on Willie Nelson's tour bus. I was at Woodstock.
No comment on that.
I saw the Beatles at Shea Stadium. I went out to San Francisco to see a West Coast version of Woodstock that was going to be in Golden Gate Park, and it got canceled. I don't know,
Were you at the original Last Waltz?
I was not at the Last Waltz.
So you were at Altamont too?
Altamont, yes.
You were at Altamont and Woodstock.
Well, Altamont is what ultimately happened when the West Coast Woodstock did not happen.
Right.
Moved down there. So, yeah, but more importantly, I was at the Fillmore West when Bill Graham was doing these amazing triple bills 3 nights a week. And there were cinemascopic size screens with light shows, huge dance floor, elevated stage. And I mean, you'd go in there one night and you'd see Spooky Tooth, Miles Davis, and Buddy Guy. I mean, it was that kind of melding of rock and roll and jazz and rock, and the local bands at that point were Janis Joplin and Big Brother, Grace Slick and Jefferson Airplane. The Doors were in L.A., the Mothers were in L.A., they came up all the time. Hendrix, Quicksilver Messenger Service. I mean, these bands were just the best of the best, and I just happened to be there. Of course, now that I look back on it, I don't think anything was an accident. Okay, I mean, I was supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. And again, it was part of the mentoring that we talk about. I mean, being around Bill Graham, going to the Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz Festival at Otis Spann Memorial Field. I mean, I went into a room where Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf were playing cards, because I knew the drummer, Fred Bilo, who had come to Jabberwocky, which was a great club at Syracuse University. And Fred came in with Buddy Guy and Junior Wells and Lewis and Dave Myers, who were Little Walter's backup band. And so when I got to Ann Arbor and I saw Fred, he said, "Hey, man, come on." So I wound up backstage. Then I wound up on stage sitting next to John Sinclair, the John Sinclair, who produced the whole show. And I remember seeing Bobby Blue Bland, and Dr. John was playing guitar for him, Wow. I mean, it's just... I saw some things, and I made friends at that festival. Dr. John, Sun Ra, I mean, Ray. I met Ray there, and these people became friends.
It's different now, right? It's different now. There's not that access anymore, but like that's one of the cool things that was about Jazz Fest was there always was that access, with the people that went there, and he kind of kept it very, that really good old school vibe of. How things should be like in, your backstage area. And between the artists, he always put them together so they could, be together.
Network
right? They were in a compound. It's like sometimes people now, they really separate a lot.
You're right.
You know what I mean? And there's been certain festivals and different things that I've done where have that chance where everybody can mingle together and do things, which is one of the really great things about Jam Cruise. say different things about those music cruises. Jam Cruise is different than all of them. It's just different. And I know it's got to be hard to be a real, like an A-lister artist, because you really got nowhere to go. You're kind of stranded. You got a fucking hallway that's 2.5 feet wide, and there's 20 kids coming this way and more coming from behind you. You gotta say something,
Yeah,
Right.
we got to prepare for that.
Putting people in proximity to one another opens up the possibility
You
of,
would love that.
of
You would-
something happening.
You would be amazing on that particular cruise, because it's very New Orleans heavy, very jazz. There's
Nice.
a lot of core and jazz things, and they have these. This is like the cool thing about it. And I'm kind of a puss. I go to bed early. Like early. It's probably 1:00 or something, 2:00. But that's just when shit gets started, right? The sets are done, and then they have these. Then they do all night jam room shit. You know what I mean? So you got like George Porter in there and Ivan, you got people in there like all night long, just vibing and doing their thing. And it's pretty cool.
When I was sitting in, I don't know, I had done a jazz series at the Civic Center called Jazz at the Center, and it was a pretty cool series. This is in the mid '80s, and it was like Wynton Marsalis.
In one of the small theaters? Or
No,
just
the big
main hall
theater.
there?
The big theater, yeah. It was Jean-Luc Ponty and Wynton Marsalis and Miles Davis and Dizzy Gillespie and Tanya Maria and Bobby McFerrin. I mean, it was Alan Holdsworth. It was a really cool series. And we did that for 2 seasons. And that ended the funding, it's usually the case. And I'm sitting home and the phone rings, and I had been recommended for a position at the Blue Note in New York. And I wound up booking the Blue Note in the Village. And yeah, I had been recommended for this job without applying for it. And he said, when can you get to New York? I was on the next plane. And so, and I lived with Howie Bartolo in Brooklyn for a couple of minutes because he was heading there to stake out his claim on Manhattan. And anyway, long story short, I wound up working at a club that a friend of mine owned called the Roxy. It was an old Gene Danino, who was a great club owner in this area, okay? And he owned a number of clubs. And he went down and opened up the club in New York, and it was an old roller rink. And I wound up working there for him. And the acts that I saw were not acts that I thought I would ever see in my life. It was Eric B. and Rakim and Run DMC and Heavy D and the Boys. So
It was like
Right
when
in the
all
middle of
that
the hip
big
hop.
hip hop was coming up.
right
Yeah.
in the it was the late '80s, and then I went to Washington D.C. and ran a jazz magazine, and then I came back to Syracuse and ran the Landmark. So I never had a game plan. I always just kind of followed the music and let the music take me where it was going to take me. And my roommate wound up running Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola, and he ran the Keystone Corner in San Francisco, and he's now running the Keystone Corner in Baltimore, a guy named Todd Barkin. And he always said, if you take care of the music will take care of you. And I thought,
Good words.
good words, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's how you base your principal model pretty much on all the
What
shows
model?
that you've run.
What model?
Well, like Stacy said, you come in, and, the artist pulls up, and you're right there to greet them right at the front. So you're taking care of the music as they're taking care of you as well. It's, it's kind of the hospitality that you show. That's taking care of them.
Yeah, it's sort of been, yeah, exactly. It's been my mantra, it's,
Well, we've come up so much with, doing so much with like Cheo, right? And it's a totally different style. Chuck doesn't want anybody to know who.
Right.
But most of the time, people that want to do that thing where you get up on stage and, introduce the band and do all these things, they don't really give a shit about the band. You know what I mean? Like from what I've seen, personal experience. But Frank, like knows every single like I couldn't, like throw a rock and hit a fucking, a cornet player or a trumpet player. I wouldn't know who the hell they were. He knows everybody's name, the side man, not just the front man. You know what I mean? He knows every player down to the, to the studio guys. Not just the people who are faces on the record. And that's impressive, man. I can't tell you. To this day, who I worked with in 2019,
Right?
And he knows all these cats, and they remember him. Like when they see him, they know that it's going to be a certain way, and they're, it's you've had this long friendship for years with Will Lee and all
yeah.
of his projects.
Yes.
I mean, like I see Will Lee and I'm like, oh my God, that's Will Lee from
Hey, the
Late
Letterman Show.
everything. Like you've been watching these people for years, and Bones Malone and all these cats that you see on the bands on Saturday Night Live, and those are all jazz players. And because they're in New York, I mean that's their regular gig, but they're still in studio, they're still playing sideman gigs, and they still tour. The dudes that come in and do my show that I've done, the Salt City Waltz show, those horns are, they're with Levon Helm, before Levon died.
Howard Johnson.
And Howard just passed, and they grossly overlooked him in the Grammys. That piece of shit. But they that dude played at the original Les Wells, but has also, I mean, he's a great musician, and the other dudes too. They've all played with. Also, the last time they were out on tour, they did the whole Little Feat, final tour before Paul passed away, and so But I bet Frank knows every single one of them from jazz projects, because fundamentally, all those players they're jazz players.
Yeah.
And even our notable players in Syracuse. That's where the musicians are, and where they hone their skill. Some of them are in Utica as well. You got Utica Rome, you got Montalbano, who else is out here? We've been talking
Monk Row.
Yeah.
Great players.
Yeah, there's some great players.
Yeah,
out
Ricky and Monk are both great. But I mean, this has always been a great music scene. Great cuisine, great music, great people. Utica is one of my favorite cities, and it's a real gem.
I always tell, I don't know if you've ever seen it. I know I've told you about it, but one of the funniest things, we always had so much, all the local releases and stuff were always sent into DMR when somebody had something new, they'd share it with Rezek. And Monk Row just had one of the best. His album was just Monk Row, and it was titled Outstanding in His Field, and it was a picture of Monk standing in a field. I'll never forget it. It was just one of the funniest, where you just look at it and it just tickled your funny bone. You can't stop laughing. But
Monk is great. Monk is a great saxophonist or saxophonist, if you prefer.
Saxophonist.
He's a saxophonist and a tremendous scholar. And I mean, he's doing that great archival project at Colgate and has
what
for
was
years.
His Mr. Ed? Was he in Mr.
Mr.
Ed?
Ed.
Oh, that was,
he was in Mr. Ed. Yeah, he and Greeley and those guys. Great musicians here. Great town. Great scene. I remember a club here called Tiny's.
Mm-hmm.
And
is this still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tiny's. Yeah. And
Shout out JoJo.
JoJo. And Lynn Michelini, of course, is a Utica gal. And Ricky was at the Savoy for years and years, right, in Rome. Brilliant musician. Great musician. Larry Arlotta, by the way, next week, he was our Rick Montalbano in Syracuse.
What was the band? Crack? It was Larry?
He was in Crack. He was in...
which was their initials, right?
Kua, Rosano, Arlotta, and Chisholm. Right, Ricky Chisholm and Tommy Rosano, and that was the band. Yes, that wasn't about the drug. No.
There was no crack when
just a similarity,
They were crack before there was crack.
Crack before crack. They were great, and Larry was great. And next week will be the 25th anniversary of his passing.
Oh my gosh!
Which is and as Stacy said, we put together this tribute to him.
Oh, it was awesome.
It really was, because we reassembled all of the bands throughout Larry's career, and we had a different keyboard player playing for Larry in each of those bands, and reassembled the original bands. I mean, it was a labor of love. Dave Rezek did a great job with that, and we were able to turn over a check for.
Well, did Larry play in Atlas as well?
Atlas Linen Company.
Yes,
the original
Atlas
Linen Company. Yeah, great band. So many bands. He was wonderful. He actually started out with the U.S. Navy band. He was in a military band.
Really?
And he played with the jazz great Melba Moore, and that lasted about 4 seconds. But Larry was a great player, and those were great days.
I remember Larry was hilarious. Everybody used to stop by our office when DMR was downtown. Like, you never knew who was going to come. Obviously, on Mondays and Tuesdays, everybody was coming in to
get paid.
to pay their vigs. Yeah, but they'd come in and pay their vigs, or but stop in, because we had the in the galleries was the the main library.
Yes.
So everybody wasn't home all the, like, now everybody just is home. But people were out. or you'd always hit the library was pretty popular spot for people to get music, and you could take out albums and books, so everybody stopped in. Plus, there was a lot of restaurants in there. You could have lunch. There was like a food court, and I don't know why he rented an office space. I hated it because it was so
I thought it was the coolest. I thought it was a real professional office.
It was so sterile, it was so sterile, and
you made it pretty though.
it was like a doctor's office or something. It was that kind of a building. It was a brand new building, and I'm sure it was a real feather to have an office in there. And when I took over the business, when I bought the business, I stayed. I think there was 2 more years on the lease. I stayed and did that, and then I got the hell out of there because I wanted to have something with windows that opened and that. So I ended up,
Funky Town.
Yeah, I ended up.
She went to Funky Town.
I went over and
Armory Square.
got the office upstairs above the chocolate shop, and I used to drop a bucket out, and they would put chocolate in it, and I would pull. One time I dropped the bucket, and the guy was a real pisser down there, T. John. I pulled the bucket up, and it just had dirty tissues in it. But that office was great, and I actually got the carpet in that office from the Landmark because there was like a bajillion rolls of carpet. So I asked if I could give them a donation and use some of the carpet. So I had theater. They had replaced the carpet a few years earlier.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I forget who it was. It might have been Denise. Somebody was there, and it wasn't you. You were gone, and I gave them a donation and took a roll of. I mean, they had freaking giant rolls of carpet down there. I don't know what they're going to do with. I bet it all went in the garbage when they redid the place.
See, that's how much she loves the business. I mean, she decorated with used carpeting.
Yeah, whatever.
Take what you can get, Mama.
Yes.
I love it.
I'm sure it was probably new. It was just a giant roll. I think we needed a friggin' forklift to get it out of there. It was crazy. But
Frank, have you ever done anything with Quincy Jones?
I have not worked with Quincy. I mean, great producer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I saw him at the Grammys once.
That's it. Just kind of.
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, I never met him. Never worked with him. No.
The other thing I wanted to ask you too, I see you have gotten yourself into this mural project with the university, with the basketball players, which is great.
Actually, it's not. The university's involved a little bit as a sponsor, but it really is. Yeah, I had been seeing these murals all over the country in places that I had worked and visited. Okay, so when I was working in New York, there were murals, and that was 35 years ago, and there were murals in Detroit. 25 years ago, and I Utica has wonderful murals.
You got one behind you.
Well, right, exactly. There you go. There you have it. Right. So wherever I go, I see street art, and I love it. And Banksy, my wife and I are big Banksy
Me
fans.
too.
We went to see a Banksy exhibit up in Toronto, which was really great, and I love it. Obviously, it's the art form of the 21st century, and it's all over the world, and it's exploding all across the country, and it's kind of paralleling what's happening with social justice movements in the last couple of years. And you're seeing more and more of it, and it's really great. And I had gone a couple of years ago. Kathy and I went to Detroit on our way to Ann Arbor for my granddaughter's wedding, and I went to the building that I used to work at, Music Hall, and there was this huge mural of Stevie Wonder. And I mean, it was, 6 stories high. And I said, wow. I mean, and it was a combination.
That's a mural. When you get.
That's a mural,
6 stories
right?
high.
You guys have a great big one somewhere, down by the
downtown.
hotel, right?
Yep.
Like a big sun kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome to Utica.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Right. So I started looking around at things online, and I saw these great murals of Muddy Waters in Chicago and John Coltrane in Philly. And Philly has an amazing mural program. And so everywhere I go and everywhere we visit, I see these murals. And so it's seeping in without my knowing it. And then finally I said, when COVID hit, I said, what are we going to do? There isn't going to be any festival this year. There wasn't a festival last year. I got to do something. I'm going crazy. I've watched every television program in the world known to humankind. Kathy and I have watched every series, although I must admit, I think we're going to watch Sons of Anarchy again.
I just watched the whole thing
What a
again.
series. It's just the best. If you haven't seen it, everybody should watch it. It's great.
Now I'm starting Mayans.
It is the most
haven't seen
politically incorrect. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't bother.
Really?
I hate to say it, but
Is it
don't.
them? Okay.
Oh, it's just really, you can't follow Breaking Bad. Well, then again, they did with Better Call Saul. What am I talking about? So we're getting tired of jigsaw puzzles and cooking and baking and everything. We're having a great time, but I said, I got to do something. And So I decided I was going to do a mural. And I was watching television one night, and somebody said they were going to do a mural, and I didn't like what I was seeing, and I thought, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. Let's do it great. Let's try to raise the bar. So whatever. I was foolish enough, again, to think that I knew how to do a mural, and so I've had to learn this whole new skill set. And I've been working on this for 9 months now.
I have.
So we're honoring 4 people who have paved the way in social and racial justice and gender equity in the country, and we're honoring Earl Lloyd, who was the first African-American to play in the NBA, played for the Syracuse Nationals, first African-American champion in the NBA with the Syracuse Nationals. Dolph Shays, who fought anti-Semitism his entire career. He was our first Jewish rock star before Sandy Koufax in sports. And then we're also honoring Manny Breland, who was the first African-American scholarship player for men's basketball at SU. And there's the SU connection, along with their sponsorship. Thank you, SU. And I got to get you to rattle off all those sponsors like you did at the top of your show.
Whatever you need.
Amazing stuff, Z. Yeah, and then Breanna Stewart, who's arguably the best player in the WNBA. Certainly, I think the best basketball player to ever come out of Syracuse. And she led the way.
Fully agree on that.
She led the way in the WNBA and to call attention to Breonna Taylor's situation in Louisville. And she was murdered shortly after George Floyd was murdered. And so Breanna has, and she also at the ESPY Awards, when she was winning an ESPY, one of her many ESPY Awards for the best athlete on the planet, she stood up and talked about equal pay for women and, justice for women in this country. So at 26 years old, she's already won 2 world championships.
She's only 26 now.
26, 2 WNBA championships. She's finals MVP twice.
What's her hometown?
Cicero, North Syracuse.
Cicero, yeah.
That's her home. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know which.
Yeah, she's from
Sure.
here. She played for CNS.
And then how many national championships does she have with Connecticut?
4.
4, right. She would
Also 4-time
She
MVP,
didn't lose
finals
a
MVP.
game in her college career, right? She went undefeated in her college career. That's unbelievable.
She also won a New York State high school championship.
Yeah.
But who's counting? So, no, she's terrific.
Yeah.
She's the best I've ever seen in the game. And so I just thought it was important. So it's kind of multi-generational, multi-ethnic, and multiracial. And hopefully it's going to call attention to the role we played. We hear a lot about the Underground Railroad, and we hear about our role in the abolitionist movement and the Jerry Rescue and all this other stuff. But that happened 150, 200 years ago, right? So we've done more to advance the cause of civil rights and human rights in this country and women's rights. And I thought it was time to call attention to that. And I think a mural is a great way to tell our story, especially when it's 6 stories high. So I can't wait. We've got an artist out of Los Angeles who's done everybody from Marlon Brando to Kobe to LeBron. And, his name is Jonas Never. And if you get a chance to go to his page and look up his work, you'll see that.
What's the last name again?
Jonas Never. Yeah. And he's going to be coming in this summer. And we're in the middle of fundraising for that, and it's going well.
How do you pick a building for something like that? And how do you get a building owner to agree to this?
Well, I had some help.
Yeah.
Worked with a lovely lady by the name of Kate Auwater at she's a coordinator for the Public Arts Commission in Syracuse. And I had reached out initially to a couple city councilors, Joe Driscoll and Pat Hogan, and that led to a conversation with the mayor. And the mayor said, why don't you work with Kate on this? And Kate and I went after the building owners and got them to sign a 10-year agreement with an option for renewal. Excuse me. That was really key. Because, we found the artist, we found the site, and the Public Arts Commission, the members, we sat around and we looked at buildings, and they had an inventory of walls that were available to use as canvases. Some were in better shape than others. I had been originally looking at something in Lemp Park right in the corner of Fayette and Warren Street, but it was in rough shape, and Kate said, I think we can find better, and she did, and she found this location, and it's right near Columbus Circle, which has been a hot topic for a while now. And a couple blocks from the War Memorial where the Nats won the professional championship. And it's right near City Hall and the Civic Center, and it's right in the middle of a couple blocks from the Landmark. It's right in the middle of the city, and it's a great location. And so we owe everything to the building owners. Really, even if you get an artist, it's like, what good's a coloring book if you don't have crayons?
Right.
You
Or the book.
You gotta have the coloring book, right? You gotta have the wall. So we've got the wall. We're set to go. We're raising the money, and it's been great.
Wow, awesome. Great work. And so when do you expect this to get started?
I think maybe July.
July, yeah.
Yeah, Jonas is in big demand. I mean, he's doing stuff for Topps baseball cards and and the San Diego Chargers. He just did the J-Lo and A-Rod for the NBC Peacock network. So, I mean, we got to get him when we can get him. But he's very excited about this project, and he signed on almost immediately. So we're thrilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he give you a time frame on how long it's going to take him to do something like that?
A few weeks at this size.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm thinking months, right?
Well,
If you
he
get 6
works
stories,
fast.
that's a lot.
He can't spend that much time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, before the snow starts flying again?
Well, no.
He'll be up there at
Freezing his ass off.
the end of August and it starts snowing.
No. It's supposed to snow tomorrow. As a matter of
You
fact,
never know.
We're gonna no.
It's supposed to snow tomorrow,
We're
yeah.
supposed to get 3 to 10 inches of snow on April Fool's Day.
Don't you love how it used to be like 4 to 6, 3 to 5? Now it's 3 to 10. They don't know exactly, so they're going to start low and work high.
Great. Hey, who wants winter to end? Not me.
No, that's super cool that you've had that. You're getting that done. That mural.
Well, thank
It's
you.
an awesome project.
Thanks, Z. I really appreciate that. I think it's going to be good for downtown revitalization, civic pride, tourism. One thing I know for sure, because I've already been informed, when the networks come to town, whether it's ESPN or CBS or NBC to cover a game at the Dome, they're going to be panning over to this. So I'm excited about that. They usually go to the Dinosaur, and I love the Dinosaur. Who doesn't? But, there's only so many times network television can go to the Dinosaur. They will continue to go to the Dinosaur. But at least now we'll have something that they can focus on and talk about Syracuse and our history in the game and our history in the social justice movement.
Isn't it cool to see these upstate New York towns revitalizing the community? There's such a great vibe in Utica nowadays with the construction going on, the hospital being built. And it's the reason why I have this podcast is so we can promote Utica. And there's just so many cool things going on. And I'm really looking forward to, like, say, 10 years from now when all the projects are done and it's going to be in their golden period, and just to see what the city turned around to be.
Well, I have to tell you that the Stanley Theater, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the most magnificent restored movie. I've never seen anything like it. Thomas Lamb, the guy that did it, also did the Landmark Theater in Syracuse. Well, the Landmark Theater, I'm sorry, I was the director. It looks like a restroom compared to the Stanley. The Stanley is a magnificent restoration. The people of Utica should be extremely proud because it's a fabulous venue. It's really great. I was thrilled when I got to.
It's nice, and it's taken care. It's taken care of, and people take pride in what their work over there.
Oh, yeah.
It's really nice.
Oh, the ushers are all uniformed. There's such great pride in the history of the theater and what it means to the city of Utica, and I can see why. I mean, it's a fabulous theater. It's one of the best examples of Depression-era 1928 movie palaces in the entire world.
What's the issue right now? They're talking about building art.
You're going to get me fired up. Tomorrow, the executive director, Lisa Wilsey, will be on this podcast to talk about it. So there's a parking lot next door, which this is the most typical Utica shit, I'll tell you right now, the small-minded politics that drives me crazy. So
It's everywhere.
Man, there was buildings there, and they knocked those buildings down and put a parking lot for the Stanley. And now all of a sudden, like, fast forward 20 years later, or however long, it's like, oh, well, screw your parking lot. We're going to put a building there now. You don't need parking because there's so much parking in Utica because there's none. You can't park anywheres. There's nowheres to park. So why do you want to get rid of this parking lot? I can see them building a parking garage. You're going to add more parking. But listen, you guys all know I'm all for the arts. I want to see this art project happen. It's just the wrong location. There's so many other places you can have. And then they try to break Utica down into these districts, right? You got the brewery district. You got the arts district, which nobody knows what the hell that is. Put it in the supposed arts district. That's where it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be in downtown. They want to choke the Stanley, and I don't get it. I don't get it. And it's the small-minded politics, and then it comes down to money.
Is there real estate involved? Are there apartments involved?
There is.
Yes.
Yeah, of course there is.
There you go.
That's what they want to have.
Well, and that's what it's really all about, isn't it? It's about real estate development. It's about developers. It's about money. It's about making money. You know what? a parking garage is a
Get
great
Frank
idea.
started on the politicians.
Oh
No,
no,
I know.
really.
Here comes this rabbit hole.
No, nobody
never
can
saw-
go at him like him.
I never saw one that shouldn't be skinned alive. Look, if you put a parking garage next to the Stanley, it's going to become a revenue stream that's going to generate money for the theater for years to come.
For the city too.
Well, in the city,
Yeah.
and that's really a smart way to go, right? If you get one property that's paying an annual tax bill to the city, so what? Somebody's getting rich, and it's not benefiting the community. And I've seen it before. They tried to do it in Syracuse. Some senator whose name
Frank wanted to bring, when they built our brand new stadium, lobbied so hard to get the stadium built downtown,
yes.
and fought really hard, and it finally it went over back to the north side. Well, because you were there, what the Battery is in Atlanta. The Braves built the stadium, and all around the stadium
Been
is
there.
a whole nother city, right?
The whole
they
city.
call the Battery,
Mhm.
with the mixed use, condos up top, all retail and bars and restaurants on the ground levels, and you can live right there, and you can walk to the stadium, and you can shop and do your grocery. You can do everything right in that neighborhood that they built based around this baseball stadium. And when I saw it, I'm like, oh, that's what Frank was thinking about.
But you know
it's
what?
one-
We were fighting a lonely battle at
It's
that
logical,
point, right?
though.
And everybody, the decision had been made. It was a done deal. They were going to move it out toward the regional market in the same location that hadn't worked for the previous 60 years. And I said, look, this is what's happening in major and medium-sized markets all over the country. And it's not that I'm a genius or I had a crystal ball. I saw it. I saw it working. And I said, this could be an engine for downtown. This is what you need, right? They were afraid. What were they afraid of? They were afraid of people of color getting together with white folks and everybody in the community coming together. Something they didn't want to happen. I mean, redlining and discrimination in housing in Syracuse is legendary, and segregation that has kept people apart is legendary. It can't work anymore. It's an old model that's it doesn't work. It didn't work in Trump's America. It's not going to work in our America. It's not going to work in anybody's America. This is a new day in America. We're changing. Demographically, we're changing. We have to embrace that change and embrace that diversity. One of the things I love about New Orleans, you go to New Orleans, you see West African, Caribbean, French, Creole. It's a gumbo. Everybody gets along. The music is sensational. The food is fabulous. The architecture is great. The history is great. Every city needs to capitalize on that. See, that's what Utica has done. That's why these smaller cities across the state, Binghamton, Utica, Watertown, there's appeal there. They didn't have a chance to grow so big that they sprawled. And, there's still a downtown left. There's still an urban core left, and people are capitalizing on that, and it makes people feel comfortable and good. And it ties them into their history and their past. So anytime you can do that, your city's going to be richer for it, But keeping us apart is just not the way to go. It isn't anymore.
I agree.
And they get everybody afraid of everybody else, and it's using
Divide and conquer, right? Simple tactics.
It's pretty much the way people stay in power and keep people under their thumb. Yeah, let's not let them get together to figure out that we're the scoundrels.
Right.
Pretty much is it. Yeah.
Never met one you didn't want to skin.
Never. But I always feel like I need a second shower after I shake hands.
Real quick, because there's a bunch of people that were chiming in, and I apologize to everybody that has been chiming in on Facebook. And if you are watching on Facebook, please click the share button. Help spread the word of EC Radio and the D and everything that Frank's doing. Let's see. Danny Taylor's checking in saying Stacey Waterman is my mentor. And he's saying, have a blessed day. And Danny was with me for that Smokey Robinson trip.
Oh, he was with you?
Danny got a hug too.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, Danny got a hug too. And I'm like, I remember looking at Danny like, did Smokey Robinson just, he's like, yeah.
Smokey was Rob.
Me and Danny just went to Atlanta.
Did you?
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
You went with me, yeah.
How was
Yeah.
that?
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Did you go to Claremont?
I didn't. I don't
No.
know if he did. I didn't ask him. But we went down, see a show, whatever, visit with my son, and we got a tour. Mark's, my son's roommate, is from that area his whole life. So he took us to the hood. He took us everywhere. We went by the Ebenezer Church. We did the tour. It was good to have a local, drive us. We had a great time that day, driving around, checking everything out.
Did you go to Margaret Mitchell's house? She wrote Gone with the Wind.
No, we stayed mostly in town, and then went to Mary Mac's for lunch, and it was a good day. We had a good time.
You did the Atlanta thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a cool city. I remember golfing.
I love
Real
Atlanta.
cool city.
I went golfing down there with Freddie Cole. Oscar was living down there for a while. Yeah, no, it's a cool city, man.
City, yeah.
It's a great city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Coley is saying I could listen to Frank tell stories all day. And yeah, me too. Like, can you come back and do this again?
I'd love to.
Yeah, please.
If they're not bored with
we
me.
didn't even scratch the surface. And plus, it's so cool to document your story. You've had such an amazing career, and I think it's important to document it some way, shape, or form. If not write a book, but do a podcast. And here we are today, documenting some of your story.
I'm having a ball,
Awesome.
and I hope it's interesting. I know it's always fun hanging out with Stacey, and always great to see you, Z.
Yeah, likewise.
And I'm honored to be here, man. It's really great. I love this city, and I love what you're doing, and I love this music, and I love this country. And you know what? I got to admit, there have been a few, and I'm not backpedaling here. There are a few politicians out there that are human, but they happen to be female and politicians of color. So as things change with society, things are changing in the political arena as well, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, well,
That's a good thing.
change is good, I think. Chris Rogers wants to tell you hello. She says hi.
I owe her. Since I left the Landmark Theater, I haven't set foot in the place in 25 years. True story.
Yeah.
But who holds a grudge? And
Well, you're Italian, aren't you?
Well, I did not like the way I exited, and I'm not happy with them. And until they make it right, I won't go back. And they don't need me, and I don't need them. So, other than that, Chris, I had left behind some Duke Ellington bandstands that had been gifted to me, and they were in the basement of the Landmark Theater. And Chris let me know one day that they were there, and I went over to retrieve them from her at the curb, right? So they went from the Landmark basement to my basement for years and years. And one day I'm working with Ramsey Lewis, my friend, the great Ramsey Lewis. And you remember the Ramsey Lewis trio? Hang On Sloopy
Yeah.
and the In Crowd and whatever. Anyway, Ramsey was a great jazz pioneer who took jazz in a whole new direction. And wonderful man, great scholar. And he said, "What are you doing with those things in your basement, you idiot?" And he said, "Those belong to the world." And these were the Duke Ellington bandstand, the fiberglass kind of masonite.
Yeah.
And it had Duke Ellington and written out in script, and there was a star over the I in Ellington. And I looked them up online, and these were the bandstands that were used on the '63 tour that was cut, the international tour that was cut short when Kennedy was assassinated. So these are famous bandstands. Well, I ran into a buddy of mine in New York at a conference, and he introduced me to a guy from the Smithsonian, and I said, "Have I got something for you?" So we donated the bandstands on behalf of Jazz Fest to the Smithsonian.
Wow.
They sent a truck up, wrapped up each one, had the travel case with all the stickers on it, Stockholm and whatever. And
You guys putting it from one basement to another.
One basement to
They're coming in
another.
with cotton gloves.
they're coming, right. But so Chris, you'll be happy to know that you were the caretaker of those for so many years. You handed them back to me, and I handed them to the Smithsonian. They're now
Yeah, and Marianne kicking them around in there.
Well, the top is missing to the travel case. So I'm sure Marion had something to do. Marion was a guy this nebbish, wonderful guy that worked at the
Oh
Landmark.
my God, what was he? Croatian?
Slovakian.
He used to get so mad. The cast of characters that worked in that fucking place. And let me tell you,
he was the best.
It was.
He threw a ladder off the balcony one day when he was changing light bulbs.
It was the.
Marion had a temper on him, man.
He used to get so mad at Dave. Now Dave was like, this old downtown hustler guy, and like he would get to drinking in there. Sometimes you'd find him passed out in the dark somewhere, whatever. They got the shit done though, way better than what I've seen. But Marion would get so mad at Dave, and he would start swearing, and he would like start speaking. I don't know what the hell, Slovakian or whatever, and he'd be spitting and he'd go, "In my country, I was warrior. This is bullshit."
He had his wife was from
You
South.
wanted to kill him.
His wife was from South America, right? I don't, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, she Guatemala or what?
So,
where,
it was the craziest bunch of people that worked.
It was great. And so they'd have a falling out, and Marion would wind up living at the theater. And he says, "Okay, I stay here tonight." I said, "Yeah, absolutely, man." So one day when he was parked behind the theater, right, and he went out, and someone had boxed him in. So he goes out with a baseball bat and starts beating up on both cars because they were parked too close to him and he couldn't get out of the spot. I said, I don't.
I gotta say, I never had any problem with people parking where the bus should park when Mary.
There's always bus parking.
Marion was good for tour bus parking.
Yeah,
He
never
really,
had to worry about that.
He knew how to clear out the curb. Oh,
That's hysterical.
we had some funny times.
Good, big fun over there.
Yeah, so Chris, thanks. Those Duke Ellington music stands are now at
Great
the
story.
African American History Museum.
Oh, they're in the history.
on the Smithsonian at the mall.
Which I have not been back. I was talking about planning a trip to D.C. to see the Van Gogh thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, boy, I'm going to take everybody. Like, I got a big group. There's like 16, 18 of us that want to go to do the Van Gogh thing. But when probably in the fall, when they open back up all those Smiths. Have you ever gone?
No.
Yes,
Let me tell you, man.
incredible.
Yeah, I'd love to.
It is one of our biggest treasures. It's all free. You got to have good walking shoes. It takes a while. You got to do it in several days. You
Well,
need
tell them it's a lot of buildings. It's not one building.
A ton of buildings.
It's a lot of buildings.
So you need
a week.
You need like 4
week.
days to a week to go
Wow.
because you want to spend time in all of them, and everybody has a favorite, and everybody thinks they're going to go there, and you want to see the Air and Space Museum. And they have full-size jets hanging from the ceiling and space.
They've got the Mercury capsules, for God's sake.
They got everything in there. And so that's always very interesting. But the American History Museum, and now they have the Native American history.
Yes.
They have the African American. It was the
Women's.
new one.
They're building the women's.
I haven't seen, but there's so many museums, and they're all free, and they're amazing.
And you can go in and you can see original TV sets from and you can see the
Archie Bunker's chair, stuff like that. Yeah.
You see Julia Child's kitchen, for God. Bon appetit. I mean, it's a fabulous place.
That's awesome.
Worth going to Washington. Far more worth going to Washington for that than
go see
politicians. Right?
To go skin a politician, you mean? Danny Molino saying Spyro Gyra at Long Branch was amazing. He's bringing that up. Great show.
Thank you, Danny. Yeah,
you worked with them a lot, didn't you?
A lot. I did. I worked with them. First big show at the Landmark Theater. First big show at the Civic Center. Jazz Fest.
Jazz Fest. Yeah.
Jazz Fest. Every place at Jazz Fest. Long Branch, downtown, OCC. Great band. One of the best jazz bands in the world. 40 years. Those guys have been around. Tommy Schumann, Jay Beckenstein, Julio Fernandez. I mean, Scott Ambush. Great band. Great. All great guys. All great. Their manager is from. Phil Brennan was originally from Buffalo. We call him Buffalo Phil. He's now living. He's been living in Florida for years. A great guy. Great guy.
He wants to know: did you promote shows at the Fox Theater in Detroit?
I attended shows at the Fox. We had a theater called Music Hall Center for the Performing Arts that was a little smaller than the Fox, right around the corner. So we did shows at at Music Hall. But I did go to see the last thing. I saw Teddy Pendergrass's last show. Shaka Khan opened up, and I saw some great shows at the Fox. The Fox is a magnificent theater. And so is the Fox in Atlanta. All the Fox theaters are great. They're beautiful. They're really beautiful.
Good stuff.
Yeah, man.
Stacy, Mark McGauley saying hello.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Mark.
I miss that guy.
Me
man.
too. I miss all our
everybody.
people.
I
miss them all.
Everybody.
Yeah, even Conan.
I wouldn't go that far.
All right. Hardiman saying this has been fantastically entertaining. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Hardiman.
Oh, I love him.
Shout out to Taylor and the Cook. He was on last week. We had a great conversation. And if you want a delicious meal, that's the next place you got to take him.
Yeah.
Where?
For sure.
Taylor and the Cook.
Well, we went to, was it Danielle's?
Yeah. It's almost dinner time.
Oh, my God.
It's almost dinner time, right?
How great was that? I mean, it was just,
It is almost dinner
you want to tell the brewery story? Because we have to stop at the brewery.
Yeah, I always have to do my rounds. I got it. Well, it's the last day of Moon Madness over at Holland Farms. I had to get my half moons.
Did you get them?
No, I'm going over.
You're going?
Yeah. And I got to
I'm
stop.
just learning that we have several stops before we get back.
I got to stop and get the beer. And then before I head home, I'm going to head home on 5. I'll stop to Panovich and get, some fresh kibasi.
I love it.
So we were talking about this. So I'm working at the Stanley, and my wife Kathy comes down, and there was a show later that night, and she came out down during the day, and we were just bopping around town. I said, we decided to go to the brewery for a tour. So I think it was around 2008. So we go to the brewery. We're inside the brewery taking the tour, and a fire breaks out. And we wind up outside. What was the other story?
So basically, it was Frank.
I did not.
You started the fire.
I did not start the fire. And we did. But I mean, what are the odds? I told you at the beginning of the show, I bought a pumpkin patch. They canceled Halloween. I've got the worst luck. I couldn't. I wanted to go to to the brewery my whole life. I wanted to take that tour. I finally take the tour, and there's a fire.
Oh my God! Remember that night, Stacey? You were
barely.
Barely right. The last thing I remember is everybody singing Bob Marley, and then everything else.
Every little thing's gonna be
every little thing's gonna be all right, and after that, it's all a blur.
Yeah.
But it was also 2008, and I can't remember what I did 8 minutes ago. So, but
Something else happened to me in Utica. I was talking about it at lunch. Do you remember what it was? Something. It's just so strange. So strange.
That has that effect on people here.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of strange.
That's the T-shirts I want to get made up. Is going to say I got Utica'd.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. Yeah,
Utica
no,
did.
that worked.
Yeah, and
works.
like Red used to say, Utica used to give her, what did she say? An enema. I couldn't think of the word for a second there. Yeah, every time she'd come here, it was like taking an enema. Hilarious. But you do got to get out of here. Let's get you out of here. Frank, let's do this again, please. We need to do this again.
Peace and love, baby.
Because we didn't even scratch the surface.
Yeah, the last time I saw you, our good friend Eli was.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
You guys did the thing.
We did a great thing. You did a great thing for Eli, and you were nice enough to have me on, and that was really a special. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. And rest in peace, Eli. What a amazing soul.
The best.
Yeah, he was.
The best.
And he was like the fabric of that community.
He was the soul of Syracuse.
Yeah.
Special guy.
Absolutely. And that was an amazing tribute. And shout out Jack Brown for he was the one that put that all together, was Jack.
You guys did a great job.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job. That's all I can say. It was a nice tribute, man.
Yeah, for
beautiful.
sure. Do you got any projects you want to plug? Anything you need to plug? Or?
Not yet. Nothing I'm going to tell you about right now.
All right.
No scoops today, brother. You'll have to have me back.
Please. We have to. We need to. Stacey, you want to plug anything? You got anything to plug?
Nah.
Nah? Nothing?
Nah,
Let's get back to work, Mama.
I want to go back to work
miss you.
so bad.
I miss my room. You know I have my own suite at her house. I have my own suite. It's awesome. Well,
So
actually, now there's a room that's open. That's right.
Two guest rooms
Yeah.
and your suite.
Yeah, my suite.
It's the Anthony Z. Donaldson suite.
Yeah, we call it the Z Suite.
And guest room,
It's
the Z
full
Suite.
bar, everything, TV, easy access to the pool and jacuzzi. It's called the Z Suite.
It's perfect. So you really have seen her in the morning.
Oh yeah,
Many times.
for many years.
one time we work on a tight budget, man. Sometimes we worked. What did we do? Was it summer camp festival out in Illinois?
Mhm.
I think there was. What is there? 6 of us in a hotel room.
Oh, yeah.
We have 3 to a bed, a couple air mattresses on the floor, like we're freaking 16 years old at
Yes.
a slumber party. But
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
we're all working.
Yeah, we make it work. We make it work. Yeah, if you got to get up to pee in the middle of the night, you got to step over
Yeah.
like 6 people to get to the bathroom. But we make it work. We're like a traveling rock band.
We don't care.
Yeah, we don't. We don't
We
care.
just pile up like
Life on the road, ladies and
Pile
gentlemen.
up-
That's
Welcome
it.
to the music industry.
That's it.
pile up with like cordwood and get your snoozes in when you can. You know?
That's right.
No, I think the only thing I want to say is that I'm grateful to the folks that have helped me on the mural project. I'm looking forward to seeing it happen. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of murals happening, and so I hope this is the first of many.
Cool.
You know,
Well-
and I hope we get Jazz Fest back together soon. I mean, we were talking about that on the way over and on the drive up, and we really need it. You know, we really need it. We need to bring people together, and we really need a big music celebration.
It's been torturous for the last the last year to not have live music.
Oh, it's awful.
You know, it's just been the worst.
Sure.
I mean, work aside, like we
Yeah,
can't.
right.
That's what we all did to get through. You know, that's all we did. Live music. It doesn't. You go on vacation, you're looking for where we can go where there's great music. You know what I mean? It's just. it's everything. So I'm just looking forward to it.
We're all lifers,
Yeah,
the three
for
of
sure.
us.
It's what makes a city a city. It's what gives you your energy and the pulse, and it's really what you gravitate to and why you go to other places. You want to hear those regional
Even
sounds.
if it's Tim Moyer, I just want him.
Thank you for bringing that up, actually. Twitch Fest is going to start in about 15 minutes over
Yeah.
on Twitch. Going to feature all the local artists, and it's going pretty much from 4:30 to 11 o'clock tonight. So everybody's going to be rating each other's channels over on Twitch. It's been an amazing thing. Shout out Joe Altier he's like the Twitch
Boy,
god right now.
yeah,
And
for
he's
sure.
really coaching these guys along, and they're all like, whatever Joe says, we're doing, and it's working. It really is.
Good.
Like Moyer's Twitch page grew in a month, like 400 people
Yeah,
in a month.
I'll fill Frank in on the whole Twitch thing. On the
Yeah, it's where all the cool kids are now.
Yeah.
Do you have Utica Music Awards here?
Well, it's something we're thinking about putting together.
Come on, man, the U-whammies.
Yeah. It's something we've been talking about doing. The local music Hall of Fame is what I really want to get off the ground, but it's not an easy task, as you know. And trying to form the right committee to do it.
Listen,
and,
if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, there's a price you pay for bringing these things. It's like I used to say every year with Jazz Fest, it's like giving birth to a cactus. It's not easy, right? But it's worth it. It's worth it. So you do it. You do it because it's worth it, right?
Right.
And that's it. So you get a little scarred, you get a little beat up, you pick up and you do it all over again. That's why we're here.
That's it.
I would like heavyweight boxers, they don't know when to quit the game. You just keep getting back in the ring. I mean, you got more scar tissue than you got anything else. But
How many more punches can you take?
It's not about that. It's about getting up once you get knocked down, and it's about getting back in the ring. I mean, obviously the game is rigged. They own the ring, but
Yeah,
but you still get in. You still slug. Keep fighting, everybody.
That's it, brother. Great words. Great word. Giving birth to a cactus. I'm going to leave it. Hilarious. Thank you to EJA Moving Services, the professional movers. If not for this, for my sponsors, this podcast isn't possible. So I got to give a lot of love to EJA. Eddie's been super supportive of Disruption Network since day one, and there's no task he can't handle. So he'll pretty much move you wherever you need to go. If you got a grandmother that wants to move to Guam, he'll move your grandmother to Guam. It's that easy. He gives you free boxes. He packs them up for you. He unpacks them for you. The service is really cool because all you have to do is be like, Eddie, put that over there, put that over there. And he does all the work for you. Let Eddie do all the work for you. 315-335-0516 is the number, or you can hit him up online, ejamoving.com. Thank you to attorney Dave Longaretta for keeping me out of trouble for many years. 315-735-6162 is the number you can get for legal advice. Also, thank you to Utica Coffee, Saranac Brewery, and shout out Joey's at 307. That's where I'm taking you next time, too. We're going to go to Joey's. We're going to go to Taylor Cook. We'll do a whole Utica food tour. I think that's what we need to do one of these days, do a whole food tour. But thank you to Matt Grabsky over at Joey's. You want a great meal this weekend. He's got a revolving dinner menu, great lunch specials. There's always a seafood dish.
Joey's.
Joey's is the best. And what Grabsky's done to that place, he's kicked it up a couple notches from where it was. So he's doing amazing things over there.
Nice.
He's also one of our major sponsors for the Danny Nappy podcast, which the new episode is out right now, people. So go over to your favorite podcast platform and stream Unbreakable, the Donato Danny Nappy story. This is the meat and potatoes of the story right now. This is
Okay.
where he's beating up like bookies.
I
and-
definitely got to get in on that.
Yeah.
I remember I listened to like the test, the beta.
Yeah, but that was actually, it's a little bit different than.
So I have to listen to the
Yeah,
the
it's
whole thing.
changed a little bit from where it was, but the Donato Danny Nappy story, it's going, it's huge. People are really loving it.
Good.
The feedback's been super awesome. So yeah. And tomorrow, Lisa's going to be here. Lisa Wiltsey from the Stanley Theater. We're going to totally bitch and complain about that project trying to go next door to the Stanley. So hopefully we could put the kibosh to that. And she's been doing media tour to try to put the kibosh on it. So she's going to come here, and this is where she could drop F-bombs, where the other media sources she can't drop F-bombs, which I encourage F-bombs. So
That's your tagline?
yeah, we encourage F-bombs. Stace, let's get back to work, Mama.
Yeah,
I
I'm with
wish.
ya.
Hopefully soon. Frank, this has been great. Lots of love to you, man. Thank you so much for coming in. Stace, thanks for driving him in. And
No problem.
She's not. Listen, she's hardly my chauffeur, man. That's my right hand right there.
That's it,
We had
brother.
a ball. Thank you, Stace, for
welcome, bud.
Yes.
making this all happen.
We got to
You're
do the
best.
shopping now. We got to.
Yeah,
Here
go
we
shop. We'll get you out of here.
Now I pay the price for the life I choose, right?
you guys have yourself a good day. Later.
All right.